Hi guys, today I want to discuss a rarely known fact, an extremely crucial period when humans faced regional extinction. This is not a hypothesis, it was confirmed by several comprehensive DNA studies. This critical time period is between 20 to 15,000 years ago, when all human populations outside Africa experienced a severe reduction. Ancient African population also dropped significantly, though less alarming. We have heard about a catastrophic Younger Dryas event that happened 12,000 years ago, when an asteroid probably hit planet Earth. But surprisingly, human population didn't decline much during that time. Younger Dryas is considered a global-level cataclysm with worldwide cooling and massive biomass burning. If this disastrous event didn't seriously dwindle the human population, then what kind of event could? Here is a chart of the effective human population size for the last 500,000 years, which was published in the scientific journal Nature in 2015. We can see the marked population bottleneck around 20 to 15,000 years ago for all populations. A population bottleneck occurs when there is a dramatic reduction in the population of a particular group of people. This was further studied by several research papers, and they came to the same conclusion that humans experienced a serious population bottleneck 20 to 15,000 years ago. The results show that European, Asian, African, and Oceania populations shared strong and sustained bottlenecks, which means long-term population decreases. The effective population sizes of European, Asian, and American dropped to below 1,500 during this time frame. At the same time, Africa appears to have a less severe population bottleneck with effective population size of 4,250. To understand how grim life was like back then, we need to ask the important question: how many humans at minimum would it take to keep our species alive in the world? In other words, what is the minimum viable population for humans? Minimum viable population refers to the smallest possible size at which a biological population can exist without facing extinction from natural disasters or demographic, environmental, or genetic stochasticity. According to studies, the minimum viable population that will survive for 100 years with 95% of certainty is 4,169. We would need 4,169 individuals to keep the human species persisting for 100 years. So, between 20 to 15,000 years ago, the overall human effective population was around 8,750. This was the closest time we as a species facing potential extinction and thus could have disappeared from the face of our planet. We see that all human populations decreased during this time, which signifies a global-wide cataclysm. When talking about cataclysms, we usually think of short and sudden incidents such as earthquakes, volcano eruptions, comet impacts, and similar events, such as the KT extinction caused by an asteroid which ended the dinosaurs era. However, this is only part of the picture. Between 20 to 15,000 years ago, the human population decrease lasted for thousands of years. It appears that our ancestors endured a slow and prolonged march to possible extinction. What could have happened back then that would have caused a long-term population crisis? It's vital that we find the reason behind this phenomenon so we can be prepared if such an event ever revisits us in the future. Between 20 to 15,000 years ago, it was considered the end of the last glacial period. One might think the greatest stress for living creatures occurs during the coldest times, such as the last glacial maximum, which was 26 to 19,000 years ago. However, the marked population decline actually came after the last glacial maximum, when climate was getting warmer. Similarly, there is no evidence of megafauna extinction at the height of the last glacial maximum. indicating that increasing cold and glaciation were not factors. Hundreds of large mammals, including mammoths, mastodons, and ground sloths, disappeared during the transition from the last glaciation to the present interglacial period, from 50,000 to 5,000 years ago. This is called the late Quaternary extinction. The cause of the animal extinctions has been vigorously debated. So far, the three main theories are the climate-habitat change, the Younger Dryas cosmic impact, and the human overkill hypothesis. Megafauna extinction could be driven by a combination of all three. Could these reasons also cause a dramatic human population decline? Well, the human population bottleneck came before Younger Dryas, so we can cross that out. As for the overkill theory, even though prehistory people did practice cannibalism, it's assumed that most communities mainly hunted animals for food instead of each other. Thus, overkill shouldn't be a big issue among human groups. Now we are left with the climate-habitat change theory. Let's take a closer look at our planet during the time when human species were almost facing extinction, which was 20 to 15,000 years ago. The last glacial maximum ended about 19,000 years ago. During the early glacial termination, Henrik Stadial 1, HS1 for short, was an event of massive icebergs discharged into the North Atlantic between 18 to 15,000 years ago. HS1 is one of the most extreme climate periods of the last glacial cycle, generating exceptionally low sea surface temperatures and significant changes in terrestrial landscape. This HS1 event happened simultaneously with a multi-millennia human population decrease. Geological evidence and climate model simulations point to overall cold and dry conditions during HS1. Scientists found disastrous weather conditions all around the world. Catastrophic drought in the Afro-Asian monsoon region during Henrik Event 1. HS1 coincided with one of the most extreme and widespread megadroughts of the past 50,000 years or more in the Afro-Asian monsoon region, with potentially serious consequences for Paleolithic cultures. Enhanced aridity and an atmospheric high-pressure stability over the Western Mediterranean during the North Atlantic cold events of the past 50,000 years. At the time of the Henrik events, Western Mediterranean marine microflora and microfauna show rapid cooling correlate with increasing continental dryness. Millennial to orbital scale variations of drought intensity in the Eastern Mediterranean. Sahel megadrought during Henrik Stadial 1. Millennial scale dry events in the Northern Hemisphere monsoon regions during the last glacial period. Our data show one of the longest and most extreme droughts in the Western Sahel history, which occurred during the North Atlantic Henrik Stadial 1. Elevated dust depositions in West Asia linked to ocean atmosphere shifts during the North Atlantic cold events. Catastrophic drought in East Asian monsoon region during Henrik Event 1. Arid conditions associated with such a shift are well documented in Southern Asia as far south as Borneo. Okay, you get the idea. Arid conditions are known to be associated with Henrik Stadial events, though HS1 seems to be the most severe one. HS1 came after the last glacial maximum and lasted for 3,000 years, from 18 to 15,000 years ago. The papers I just showed you are evidence of severe long-term droughts during this period. West and Central Africa, Mediterranean Basin, West Asia, East Asia, and South Asia. These were habitable areas or refugia during the last glacial maximum. Unfortunately, the inhabitants that lived in these regions during the cold last glacial maximum then encountered millennia-long drought. Water is one of the most essential commodities for human survival, second only to breathable air. Drought can impact water quality and natural environment. Even a short-term drought can make living conditions difficult and dangerous very quickly. In human societies, drought has serious health, social, economic, and political impact with far-reaching consequences. We cannot comprehend how incredibly difficult it must have been to live through the millennia-long drought. Now, let's see what climatic conditions the Americas and Australia had during this period. Most of North America was covered with ice sheets during the last glacial maximum. About 16,000 years ago, people traveled from Beringia to North America. As for the two southern continents, unlike the vast drought happening to the north of the equator, researchers found the iceberg discharge in the North Atlantic led to an abrupt increase in the southern hemisphere monsoon precipitation over South Pacific, eastern South America, and Australia. During HS1, El Niño Southern Oscillation was active, causing widespread wet conditions in the south. It might sound better than the droughts in the northern hemisphere, but heavy El Niño and monsoon precipitation means increased frequency of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, and mudslides. This can be very problematic and dangerous for human populations. Either way, HS1 was a trying and difficult time for humans. The millennia-long extreme weather conditions might be the reason for the global-wide human population decrease. Africa is the only continent with large areas in both north and south hemispheres. Thus, ancient Africans can migrate accordingly within the continent. I wonder if this was the reason why the African population didn't get hit as hard as other populations. Homo sapiens have been through multiple glacial and interglacial periods. Why only at the ending of the last glacial maximum, at HS1 period, did the population drop so perilously low? Comparing to another cataclysmic period, the Younger Dryas, in the Northern Hemisphere, HS1 cooling event was as cold, if not colder, considerably drier, and lasted much longer. While in the Southern Hemisphere, HS1 was wetter with more storms. Therefore, HS1 had even more extreme climatic conditions than the Younger Dryas. Here's a chart showing the temperature, CO2 level, and dust from the Antarctica Vostok ice core for the past 420,000 years. We can see the temperature correlates with CO2 level, and the high dust concentration happened when temperature is low, which means colder climatic conditions were usually dry and dusty. In the last 400,000 years, HS1 has the highest level of dust concentration. The high dust level in ice core complements the theory of a millennia-long intense drought in the northern hemisphere. Anatomically modern humans emerged about 300,000 years ago and experienced multiple glacial and interglacial cycles. But they had never experienced a prolonged catastrophic drought like this before. This could be a key reason for the significant population decline during HS1, but not in other glacial conditions. Moreover, I think there were additional reasons that made the period between 20 to 15,000 years ago so uniquely deadly. The unprecedented HS1 superdrought must have led to loss of both food and water resources, triggering territorial conflicts and cycles of war. This would have been very detrimental to human population size. Heinrich stadios are recurring events which happen at the endings of ice ages, when massive icebergs discharge to the North Atlantic, causing major changes to ocean currents and sea surface temperature. Such events would increase aridity in the Northern Hemisphere. Right now, we're in an interglacial period, but there will be new ice ages coming. And at the end of each ice age or glacial period, HS1 event will probably come with massive droughts again. Is there anything humans can do to protect ourselves from such dangerous events? We probably can't stop it from happening because it is a planetary scale episode. We cannot control where the ice sheets would accumulate or change the ocean currents when icebergs break off and melt. but we can monitor when the ice sheets reach a critical mass and ready to break off. Maybe in the future, we can move icebergs to carefully calculated areas in the oceans so their melting won't dramatically change the world climate. This is just my layman's idea. There must be something we can do to lessen the effects of Henrik Stadios. Now, let me expand this discussion in another direction. I started researching the human population bottleneck because I believe there had been at least one advanced civilization before ours. Worldwide megalithic phenomenon could be proof of the existence of a previous highly advanced civilization. Most known enigmatic ancient megalithic sites are located in Eurasia, Africa, and South America. They include the Giza Pyramids, Baalbek, Machu Picchu, Sacsayhuaman, Pumapunku, Yangshan Quarry, Changyu Quarry, and Longyou Caves. Some sites show amazing precision cuts. Others contain huge stone blocks or giant caves with uniform tool marks that resemble modern machine marks. Architects, engineers, and other experts find it very difficult, if not impossible, to explain how these sites were constructed by ancient manual labor. For this reason, some researchers have proposed the theory that these sites were remnants left over from a previous highly sophisticated civilization. People from the civilization created the mind-boggling megalithic structures that we cannot even duplicate today. This lost civilization was long gone before ours rose to predominance. What caused the demise of such an advanced civilization? When did it happen? It's possible that what ended the civilization might happen to us in the future. It probably won't happen for a really long period of time, but the sooner we start analyzing the data, the better prepared we could be. The global-wide megalithic sites indicate a global-wide advanced civilization, potentially similar to what we have now. The ending of such a civilization should be associated with devastating human population decrease. Some scholars propose that Younger Dryas could be the cataclysm that ended an advanced civilization. However, there was no significant population reduction during Younger Dryas. I made an earlier video explaining my research in detail. You can click the link at the upper right corner to watch it. For the entire existence of anatomically modern human, there was only one worldwide population decrease, significant enough to be considered the ending point of a previous advanced civilization. That was between 20 to 15,000 years ago during HS1. At that time, Homo sapiens have already evolved for over 280,000 years. At least 40,000 years ago, humans already had the same brain shapes as today. Their brain size was equal or even larger than ours. It took us about 12,000 years to develop from making stone tools to landing rockets on Mars. Our archaic ancestors would have had more than enough time to make a similar technological advancement. What if that was the time of the megalithic civilization? After progressing for tens of thousands of years, this advanced civilization encountered HS1, which caused global-level environmental devastations, such as super droughts and super flooding that lasted for thousands of years. On top of that, this could have led to resource shortages, triggered social and geopolitical conflicts, and endless wars. Wars among states with highly developed weaponry would be as destructive as our 20th century world wars. It might be like those dystopia sci-fi movies, except this one could be a true story. As catastrophic drought hit, well-established human society and civilized living faced great challenges. Long-term drought led to scarcity, which caused panic. To fight for resources, war broke out, and nuclear weapons or similar destructive devices were unleashed. The majority of the population perished, along with their cherished knowledge and history. Buildings, bridges, power plants, water towers, most man-made structures would have collapsed. either due to wars or lack of regular maintenance. Vehicles, machinery, and other tools broke down and couldn't be replaced. The small groups of people who survived the calamity were segregated to different places and struggled to get basic living resources. When survival is the ultimate goal, advanced knowledge that was accumulated for tens of thousands of years is no longer valuable and therefore diminished and lost in time. Our modern technology is achieved by countless specialized talents in every field. It requires extensive, complex teamwork and well-coordinated group effort. That being said, it's reasonable to assume the devastating decline of human population during HS1 could explain the traumatic loss of ancient technology. Metals rust, plastic breaks down, and time itself is the final destroyer. Only these rock-hewn caves and stone structures remain to tell their passing glory and hint at what might have been, like the receding sound of an echo over time. HS1 lasted for 3,000 years, from 18 to 15,000 years ago. Could this event be the gravestone of a previous advanced civilization? What do you think? If you have any insights, please leave me a comment. If you like my video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you'll be notified when I upload new videos. I have a wide range of topics that I want to share with you. This is Curious Being. I'm Tina. Thanks for watching and see you next time.